When you're staring at a fresh cut of steak, a bag of berries, or a big batch of sous-vide marinated chicken, the first question that pops into most people's heads is, will this stay fresh long enough, or am I just throwing money at another kitchen gadget that sits unused? That hesitation is real, especially when the market is flooded with tiny countertop sealers that promise miracles but can't handle anything beyond a few chicken breasts. I've spent the last couple of weeks actually setting up a vacuum sealing workflow in a small home kitchen that also doubles as a weekend market stall, and I'm here to walk through whether the VEVOR chamber vacuum sealer lives up to the hype or if you'd be better off putting that cash toward a different kind of storage solution. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of sealing you need when you're dealing with both wet and dry foods. A standard external vacuum sealer does fine with dry pasta, nuts, or pre-packaged snacks, but as soon as you introduce liquid, think marinades, soups, or juicy fruit, the bag can collapse, the seal can leak, and you're left with a soggy mess. A chamber model, by design, equalizes pressure inside the bag before sealing, which means you can safely vacuum pack a bowl of broth or a bag of marinated tofu without the bag being sucked into the pump. That's the core value proposition for the VEVOR machine. It promises to handle the messy, wet side of food prep without the usual headaches. In practice, the VEVOR's 1200-watt heating element does heat the sealing bar quickly enough that you can move from one bag to the next without a long cooldown. I tested it by sealing a tray of diced strawberries soaked in a light sugar syrup, a large roll of raw pork ribs that I'd seasoned and vacuum marinated, and a few small bags of coffee beans for daily use. The dual lock seal featured two separate sealing lines that crisscross gave me confidence that the bags would stay sealed even when I tossed the rib roll into a cooler with ice packs. The seal held up during a 2-day road trip, none of the bags leaked, and the meat stayed at a safe temperature. Now, who benefits most from a chamber system like this? If you're a home cook who frequently batch prepares meals, runs a small food service booth at farmers markets, or you simply want to extend the shelf life of bulk purchases, especially wet items, this unit fits the bill. The 23.6-inch sealing length is long enough for a standard 12-inch roll of vacuum bag, but you can also cut the bag down to fit smaller items without wasting material. That flexibility is a real time saver when you're juggling a mix of soups, sauces, and dry goods. On the flip side, if you're only looking to preserve a few slices of cheese a week or you don't deal with liquids at all, a simpler external sealer will cost less and take up less counter space. One of the practical strengths I noticed is the stable batch operation. The machine has a fairly large vacuum chamber, so you can load multiple bags, close the lid, and let the unit run through a cycle without having to open it for each bag. This is a huge advantage if you're processing a big batch of pre-cooked meals for the week. The vacuum power, rated at 100 kilopascals, is strong enough to pull air out of tightly packed items. Think a full bag of shredded carrots without stalling. In my tests, the pump didn't overheat even after a 30-minute continuous run, which suggests the cooling system is adequate for occasional commercial-grade use. However, there are trade-offs that deserve a mention before you click Add to Cart. The machine is definitely on the heavier side. At over 30 pounds, it's not something you'll casually move around the kitchen. The built-in power cord is long enough for most countertop setups, but you'll need a sturdy surface that can support the weight, especially if you plan to keep it on a rolling cart. Another nuance is the noise level. The vacuum pump produces a low hum that's comparable to a dishwasher in its early cycle, noticeable, but not ear-splitting. In a quiet apartment, you might want to run it at a time when the hum won't clash with conversation. The price point sits in a middle range bracket for chamber sealers. It's cheaper than many industrial models you'd find in a restaurant, yet it's pricier than entry-level external sealers. The real question is whether the value you get matches the cost. In my experience, the ability to safely vacuum seal liquids alone saved me at least 2 trips to the grocery store per week because I could bulk freeze soups and sauces. That translates into a tangible savings on food waste. If you factor in the time saved from batch cooking and the reduced need for multiple containers, the cost starts to feel justified. A practical weakness I ran into involves the bag loading process. Because the chamber has a fixed